Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into Seattle City Council meetings from early 2024.
Buckle up.
We're talking about the very first meetings of the year.
Yeah, January 2nd, 9th, and 22nd. A lot happened. New year, new council, right?
Right. Stacks of meeting minutes right here, ready to go. And I know some people might think, meeting minutes sounds thrilling.
Haha. Yeah, not exactly a page turner.
But trust me, there's some serious drama hidden in these pages. Big decisions being made, and we're going to break it all down.
Absolutely. Procedure. These meetings give us a glimpse into the very heart of Seattle politics.
So to kick things off, let's set the stage. What was the lay of the land as Seattle rang in 2024?
Well, the first thing that jumps out is the sheer number of fresh faces on the council. January 2nd was swearing-in day.
Yeah, I was going to say, lots of new council members.
And let me tell you, there were a lot of proud families packed into those council chambers.
You're right about that. Rob Saka's daughter, May Eve, swore him in.
Right. And Tammy Morales, her son, Mateo, and her mother, Janine, did the honors.
And how could we forget about Maritza Rivera being sworn in by her daughter Elena and her mother Aida? It was pretty amazing to see those personal moments captured in the official record. It kind of humanizes the whole thing, you know?
It does. It reminds us that these council members are people, too. They've got families and lives outside of those chambers.
Exactly.
But it also hints at something else, a potential power shift within the council. Think about it. New council members often mean new priorities, new alliances. It's like a whole new dynamic.
Let's see, we had Rob Saka, Tammy Morales, Joy Hollingsworth.
Don't forget Maritza Rivera, Kathy Moore, and Dan Strauss. That's 6 new members sworn in.
Wow, 6. You're right. That's practically a whole new council.
Exactly. And that might be why when you look at the later meetings, there's this increased focus on certain issues.
Okay.
Affordable housing, for example.
Interesting.
Like these new members really tapped into something with voters concerned about that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got this wave of new energy coming in, ready to tackle the issues. But I'm guessing that energy is going to encounter some real challenges. What were they up against?
Oh, there's always a challenge. And one of the biggest ones pops up almost immediately.
What's that?
A vacant seat on the council.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about that, but honestly, I forgot all about it. What happened? Did someone resign?
The specifics are a little murky. These early minutes, they're very procedure-focused, not much gossip.
Right.
But yeah, it looks like that at-large position opened up pretty unexpectedly. And filling that vacancy, that becomes a major, major focus for the council, especially with this crazy deadline they're facing.
Hold on. A deadline. How tight are we talking? What's the rush?
Seriously tight. The January 2nd minutes, they actually mention a council vacancy calendar.
A what? That's a thing.
Apparently. And according to this calendar, they only had 20 days to appoint someone.
20 days. That's it. That doesn't give them much time to find the right person. What happens if they don't meet the deadline?
Right. It's wild. Well, this council the vacancy calendar is not just some random thing they came up with.
Okay.
It's city law. It's there to make sure things move quickly when a seat opens up.
Makes sense.
Can't have any one district going without representation for too long, right? That would give the other areas an unfair advantage when it comes to voting and stuff.
That's a good point. Okay, so the clock is ticking. What happens next? How does the council even begin to fill this empty seat?
Well, that's where things start to get really, really interesting. The January 9th meeting, that's when we start to see how they're going to tackle this challenge.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the public, they had a lot to say.
Oh, I bet they did. This is Seattle, after all. People here are passionate about their city. All right, let's dive into those January 9th minutes then. What was the public saying? Give me the good stuff. So last we left off, the council was facing this ticking clock to fill that empty seat, and it sounded like the public was ready to give him an earful. What were they saying? What was the vibe like at that January 9th meeting?
You know how we were talking about how council members are just people too?
Yeah, families, lives outside of City Hall, the whole deal.
Right, exactly. Well, the public comments at this meeting, they really drove that home.
Really? How so?
It wasn't just about qualifications or, the usual policy stuff. People were sharing these really personal stories about how this vacancy, this empty council seat, how it was actually impacting their lives, their families, their neighborhoods even.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Were there any comments that really stuck with you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There was this one woman, Sarah. a single mom from District 3, I think.
Okay.
And she was talking about how important it was for the council to appoint someone who really, truly understood what working families are going through in the city. She even brought up affordable housing, actually.
Oh, interesting. I bet that's a big concern for a lot of Seattleites.
Yeah. And she tied it all together, like her family's struggle to afford rent to stay in their neighborhood. She connected it to this vacant seat.
Right, like who they appoint really matters.
Exactly. It highlights how these things that seem kind of procedural, like filling a vacant seat, they have this ripple effect on people's actual lives.
I bet hers wasn't the only story like that. Anything else stand out?
Yeah, there was this other guy, Michael, I think his name was. He owned a business, had for a long time, over in District 7.
Okay.
And he was adamant that the council had to put experience first, like above all else.
Yeah. Experience over everything else, huh?
Yeah, his point was that there are already so many new faces on the council that they needed someone who could jump right in, no learning curve, someone who already knows the ins and outs of city government.
He's got a point.
Yeah.
It's tough, right? You need that experience, but at the same time, bringing in new ideas and perspectives is important too. It's a tough balance. It makes me wonder how the council was processing all of this input with this deadline hanging over their heads.
Oh, I know. Talk about pressure. And believe me, it only gets more intense from here, because that January 22nd meeting, that's D-Day.
Decision day.
Decision day, the day they had to pick someone. And let me tell you, the room was packed.
Yeah, over 50 people showed up to speak, right? It's incredible. Shows how invested people are in what happens in their city.
It was more than just speaking, too. The minutes mention that each finalist for the vacant seat, they each got 3 minutes to address the council directly, to make their case, like a mini presentation.
Whoa, talk about pressure. 3 minutes to convince them you're the one. That's intense. So what'd they say? Any clues in the minutes?
Here's the thing. The minutes are pretty vague about what went down in those presentations. They just say the presentations happened.
Are you serious? Come on, that's such a tease. They can't just leave us hanging like that.
Tell me about it. It's like they gave us a peek behind the curtain and then slammed it shut. But I guess that's how meeting minutes work sometimes. They're all about the official stuff, not so much the juicy details.
True, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it's all about procedure, remember? But, even with these limited details, we can still learn a lot. Like the fact that so many people spoke, the fact that they gave the finalists this platform, this chance to make a direct appeal.
Yeah, it says something.
It does. To me, it says they're committed to transparency, to hearing from the public. And that's huge.
Right. It makes you realize that these decisions, these meetings, they're not just some abstract political game. They affect real people's lives.
100%. This isn't about political maneuvering. It's about affordable housing, public transportation, how Seattle is going to grow and change, and who's going to benefit.
And even though we don't know exactly what was said during those 3 minutes, we know the council was listening. They had to be, with everyone in that room, all those voices.
Right. And that creates this fascinating tension, right?
How do you mean?
Well, on one hand, they have to make a decision, and fast. That deadline is no joke.
Right. Can't drag it out forever.
But they also have to be mindful of the community, of all these different needs and perspectives. It's a microcosm of governing, I think, balancing those competing pressures.
Totally. So speaking of those pressures, I gotta know, what happened next? Did they make a decision? Who got the seat? Okay, I gotta know. After that cliffhanger, who got that council seat? Did they make a decision?
I can't tell you that right. We're working with the meeting minutes here.
Right, of course.
Not a live stream. They focus on the process, the steps along the way. They don't always give us the ending we want.
Oh, I know. Still frustrating, though. Makes you wonder if they do it on purpose, just to keep us in suspense.
Maybe. But there are something interesting in those January 22nd minutes, something that gives us a little clue about what the council was thinking.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's a small detail, really buried in the procedure, but the minutes mention a motion to extend the application deadline for the vacant seat.
Wait, really? They extended it? Why would they do that? Didn't we just talk about how they were in a huge rush to make a decision?
Exactly. It's almost like they weren't satisfied with the applicants they had.
Interesting. So even with this pressure of the deadline, they were willing to take a risk, maybe, to find the right person.
It seems that way, right? It wasn't just about filling the seat as quickly as possible. They wanted someone who was a good fit, both for the council and for Seattle.
That makes sense. Shows they were taking it seriously.
And this actually circles back to something we keep talking about, public engagement.
Oh, yeah. How so?
By extending the deadline, they were opening up more opportunities for people to apply, more time for people to hear about it, throw their hat in the ring.
More voices, more perspectives. Makes you think, what if no one had shown up to those meetings?
Right.
What if they hadn't shared their story, their concerns? Would the council have felt the same pressure to be so thorough?
It's a good question. A little unnerving, even.
Really highlights how important it is for people to show up, to get involved in local government, even when, or maybe especially when things seem a little boring or technical,
Hmm.
because it matters.
It does. I mean, think about it. These meetings, these stacks of minutes we're talking about,
Yeah.
they represent real decisions being made about the future of Seattle.
And even though we don't know the end of this story, who got that council seat, we do know that Seattle's future is being shaped right now. In these meetings, one public comment, one vote at a time.
And you never know, maybe one of our listeners will be the next person to step up to that microphone, make their voice heard.
Now that's a call to action.
Yeah.
Wow, we went from dry meeting minutes to a pretty gripping story about local politics, don't you think? Public engagement, the power of making your voice heard. This was quite a deep dive.
It really was. And remember, this is just a tiny, tiny glimpse into the world of local government. There are countless other stories hidden within those minutes just waiting to be discovered.
So listeners, we have a challenge for you. Head over to your city council's website, take a look at the meeting schedule, maybe browse through some agendas, sit in on a meeting. You might be surprised what you find.
Who knows? You might even be inspired to start a deep dive of your own.
Until next time, stay curious, keep asking questions, and remember, the future is local.
And well-informed.
We'll see you on the next episode of The Deep Dive.